Hello, you're listening to Profit Sharing in the Real World. I'm Danny Murphy, here today with my good friend Dick Erickson, the author of Profit Sharing in the Real World. Dick, it's good to see you again.
Good to be back. This is great stuff for me. I love to talk about it, and it's good to be back.
And I know you love to talk about profit sharing, but also other aspects of business, leadership especially. We were talking about leadership a little while ago and how to be a good leader. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Good. Yeah, that's a huge topic. It probably is the paramount of a good organization is the leader.
And what does it take to be a good leader? You talked about the 3 T's.
Yeah. And we're always looking for, I try to keep things simple in my mind so that when I can stay on track on different things when I'm trying to, share thoughts. But the 3 T's, the first is being trustworthy. The second T is being transparent. And the third is to be touchable. Now, all these, there's kind of little words that could better describe it, but at least they're all named with a T to help us remember them.
It's a memory tool.
Yeah. Memory tool.
The
Good.
3 T's. So when you say touchable, you mean accessible, reachable, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about all 3. Let's start with trust. And you were in a business where trust is in particularly short supply, isn't it?
Yes.
Tire business. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, Danny, what I didn't realize when I joined it, I hadn't really thought it through to that extent, except I had grown up in the rural in North Dakota, worked on farms. My dad has a small farm. And so I was used to working with my hands and all, but never thought of, when you're out by yourself on a tractor or something, it's you and the tractor.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got into an issue where I'm dealing with people when I got in the tire business, whether initially I was getting trained to be that. And the more I thought about that, I noticed at times the pushback from the customer at the counter sometimes over explaining what their needs were for that car. And I use that versus what they wanted. Sometimes what they wanted and what they need were 2 different things. But we determined that. Well, I found that they were questioning us to the point that I realized there wasn't trust going on. And I thought about it and kind of did a little research. It was an industry that there wasn't a lot of trust. A lot of people could give you 3, 4 ripoffs they had the last 5 years getting their car fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So trust became a paramount issue. Well, how do I denote that to the customer? And so that being said, I realize it's easy to say, but to perform and be a person of your word, and whether it's the price of the product, the need of the product, the time that you're going to have the product back to the customer if he's getting it repaired, the car, however we want to describe that, trust was a huge issue. And then if I was going to be successful, I had to get that down. What does it take for a customer to trust me? And then as I grew in the company, my people, once I became in leadership of that, how do I train them so they could be trustworthy? Every one of us had to fill that. So the human side of trustworthy, there's other issues I'll give you, feelings of something can be trusted by appearance and stuff, but staying with people was so important. And so as I took that on, I wanted to make sure that we did everything possible to ensure that people could trust us. And it wasn't just what we said. Again, I touched on a minute ago. What's the appearance of this place? Well, how do you feel when you walk in? Is it clean?
What about driving in?
Yeah.
Can I find a parking spot? Are those lines for the parking spots even visible?
That's right. Where it's very laid out. We found that is especially true for the female customers, not to differentiate, but they, that repair of the car was not part of their world a lot of times. So when they came in, we had to go extra, all the way from that. Let's go back to the bathroom. What's the bathroom look like?
The bathrooms make a difference, don't they?
Yes, it was probably just about a paramount thing to the female buyer is their bathroom needed to be absolutely spotless if possible, and I wanted it that way. What is it? Once I realized how important that was.
And we've talked about it before. For the guys, a functional bathroom that's relatively clean, that's all a guy
Yeah.
wants.
Amen.
For the women, something that's a little cut above, that gives her a good feeling and maybe even some little degree of trust in the business. They care enough to keep this place clean.
Yes. Yes. There's a hook behind the door to hang my purse on, or all sorts of things. Do I have a clean mirror, or, the whole thing? Everything is.
There's an extra roll of toilet paper. Somebody thought of that.
That's right.
Yeah, that all
That's right.
communicates.
And the lock, it looks like it works.
Well, that's important too.
It is.
Yeah.
So all these little things. So you kind of have to get out of yourself and really just about go to the lady itself. To say, well, what makes you feel uncomfortable or in a bathroom? I mean, I got one right now that I go into. I'm never sure if the door is truly locked. Well, I kind of stay away from that place. There's times I want the door locked.
Yeah.
And
well, a lot of people are in the habit, they go to a restaurant and the first thing they do is check out the bathroom, because that communicates, does this place care about cleanliness and keeping things in order?
That's right.
Yeah, very important. So, trust. A tough business to get trust in. Anything to do. So many times that I felt like, I got to trust this guy. I told you earlier, I used to, if something needed to be done on one of my vehicles, if I could possibly see myself doing it, I would do it, because then I would know that I hadn't been taken advantage of by.
That's right.
By a service provider. Unfortunately, there were a few occasions when I did the work as well as I could and ended up having to take it to someone anyways, because I screwed up the job. That happened. But yeah. So yeah, and there's a degree of faith, when the guy comes back and says, well, you need this, this, and this, and you don't know what this, and this is, there's trust involved. So if it's not there, it's hard to make that transaction, isn't it?
Being people of your word, be a person of your word. You told them something that has to, all the way from appointment time to the price of the product that you quoted. Those are comments we make to our, in our conversation with the customer, that is consistent and we can be held accountable. This is what we said, and be happy to be held accountable. Then the other issue is the appearance, all the way from the surroundings to the employees. We found the one company that I end up benchmarking, all the employees had white shirts on in an automotive repair place.
It's incredible.
Unbelievable. And I took a new employee out there with me after about the 5th visit. I went out there 19 successive years, and he was my new right-hand man. And he got out there and he said, well, before we left, when he first joined, he said, boss, these white shirts aren't going to make it. I already changed it in the company. And I gave him the rights with his position to go to a different uniform. And then I took him out west, and on the way back, he said, I made a mistake. Let's get the white uniforms back, or the white tops. We had dark pants. But the point was, so the appearance and different things, how a person, no beards, could have a mustache. Some people say, well, I think I should be. I said, I'm not questioning that. I'm trying to be appealing to the mass audience out there. How do I do that? There's going to be some people who would prefer that, but mass of them want something that they kind of feel comfortable in. Nothing stands out, So anyhow, I may have taken that too far, but appearance is so important too, to get trust.
Now, another thing, another example out of my own life, I had a problem with the AC in my little Ranger, okay? And so I had to do something about it. And I knew in the back of my mind, anyone I go to, they're going to say radical surgery, $1,400, compressor, the whole deal.
Yeah.
In the back of my head, I knew that was what I was going to be told. Then I found this shop like 3 miles from my apartment, and it was an old guy. He's got a back room. He's watching TV, and he comes out and it takes a look, and there was a little valve that had gone bad, and it was leaked. There was a leak from that, and he had a very special tool to get at that thing without having to drain the system. Very convenient. And he looks at me and says, $100. I was like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
and so, I mean, that's how you get a customer for life, by doing what they need as opposed to what's most profitable for your company.
Yeah, and jumping in on that sometimes, and even what you thought was needed. So that's more of a one. We try to distinguish what you need versus what you want, not to hurt your feelings about you wanted a full brake job. You didn't need a full brake job. You needed a front brake job, but you also needed one tire on the back, or you needed tires on the back that you didn't. The price might have been the same of what you walked away with, but we were there to be professional enough. But you had to trust us. Come on, let me show you your tires. Or but the point is to meet your needs, because if we were to be the professional, but I had to have your trust to do that.
Well, trust is so important in so many businesses. I thought about, the lawyer commercials. What is the main message, the core message of any lawyer's commercial, whether it's Harrell and Harrell, whether it's Farrah and Farrah and Farrah and Farrah, whether it's Morgan, Morgan, Morgan and Morgan,
Yeah.
The core message is trust us.
Yeah.
Trust us. You can trust us. And it goes for other businesses as well.
And let me challenge that comment right there that they're doing. I thought, trust you. Those are words now. How about if we do this? How about we would like to have your business. We want to prove to you that we can be trusted, because that comes out of the person who you're working with. If someone says, can he be trusted? Well, he says he can be. Yeah, but he's the one who's going to take the money at the end of the deal. How about the person who got the service? Did he feel? That's the person I always wanted. How did you feel about this? Did you feel we met your expectations? So you can. I found if you were happy, you were better than me spending money on TV for spots, because someone verified that we could be trusted.
Yeah. And it applies to other businesses. I don't care if it's a roofing contractor,
Amen.
Plumber, electrician, an insurance company. When they advertise, one of their core messages is, trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me. So, yeah, trust is so important in business. The second thing you wanted to talk about today was transparency.
Yeah, and a lot of these are interconnected, needless to say, because I think being transparent, thing that went through my mind a lot of times when I started with these 3 T's and I got to transparency, I think, first of all, if you're going to be transparent, I think it's important you know who you are. So when you're trying to relay a message, you know your strengths. And I think we all have them. There's some areas, if you ask me about some law, legal deal, I said, listen, don't know anything about that. I'm in this business, and here's what I can share with you. So I got to know what I know and what I don't know sometimes. So being transparent, but you got to take that on personally, I think, as much as possible. So when you do communicate, you're not over in the weeds. You're staying on point of what needs to let them know that, or that you can be part. That would give a trust factor if someone says, well, that guy, that person is in the right avenue here. That's what I came in for. He seems to be transparent with me enough that I know he's somewhat of an expert at that. So I think to be transparent, and then to also know, some I found in personal relationships, I had to know myself to know that if someone came in to interact with me and was somewhat of a bully, I have to control my emotions over those things. But I got to know, some people can control those better than others. But if you know where your weaknesses are, you you learn how to deal with that. And being transparent, sometimes say, well, that's just for the other customer. Well, you want to be on your best behavior in being transparent, but you also have some challenges of human nature, of yourself, or it comes from maybe some background issues or something like that. But I think transparent so that they feel you're being upfront with them when you're talking. I'm trying to determine if I can trust you, but if you're not transparent with me, I'm kind of like, he's leaving something out here. I got to put it all out there.
and that started with the call center, people calling
Yes.
Sun Tire to get a price, and you gave them an out-the-door price. Fees included. I hated it going to a tire store and get a couple tires and it's $20 or $30 more. Oh, there's a disposal fee. Oh, we forgot to we didn't put tax. That didn't include taxes. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I want to know what's coming out of my pocket. Okay.
That's right.
Before the transaction.
That's what we're very sensitive about that and tried to make sure at the end of that. And you can write a check right now for that. To verify, to give you something more that says, listen, you told me $252.37. Here it is. Before we start, I'm holding you to what you told me. Yeah, that's what it is, sir. Yeah.
And if something else comes up, you just tell them, that's not what we...
Yeah, and this is what it covered.
Yep.
And we'll go from there. And you have the rights to, if this doesn't sound like, if we weren't giving you straight scoop, let's decide it right now.
Yeah, and sometimes the surprise is, you don't have much tread on those tires. While you're getting the brake job, you might want to think about that. It's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so transparent in the tire business, back to trust, giving them the real price that's coming out of their pocket, being reliable in terms of getting it back on time.
Yes.
And
very important.
Yeah. One other thing that I was thinking about with trust was, somebody can do business with a business 10 times and everything goes smoothly. But that 11th time something goes wrong, that trust is gone.
Yeah.
You had that experience with it.
Oh, yes. And when I realized how many people they'd felt and were probably taken advantage of. And so everything's going fine for 8, 9, 10 times, and all of a sudden, boom, something pops up that they didn't expect, and boom, like you said, well, you told me. We had a problem there with price increases that happened periodically, and if we hadn't seen you for a year, and we'd look and say, hey, good to have you back, and you'd say, I bought 2 tires from you last year, I want to put the other 2 on today. And we'd had a price increase there. We had to be very careful before we started anything. Said, listen, a month ago we had a price increase on that product. Let me show you what the new price is. Because I had it at times that say, yeah, we'll get those 2 put on when I first kind of realized it. And we had times in my 40 years that price increases were happening quite often. In today's time, that happens too. And to make sure of the possibility that they knew exactly what they were getting before we started working on the car because of the lack of trust in the industry.
And there could even be times when somebody, a business, has to legitimately jack up the price a little bit to cover his butt.
Yeah.
But because they weren't transparent from the get-go, well, they just lost the trust. And now the customer who's not being taken advantage of feels like he or she is being taken advantage of.
Right. So that was, to bend over backwards on working to continue the trust going on. And if you were called out on trust, is you better take care of it right now. Don't let them leave feeling that something was bad. I mean, what's the problem here? Let me get this taken care of. And you'll find that at good restaurants and stuff. You didn't like this? Well, let's take amends right now. Let's get this fixed. Versus, well, sorry, you should have known better. And you're going, yeah, I do. And I know better not to come back again.
Yeah. And once that trust is broken, most people will never go back, ever. Because there's another business a half mile away that I can try.
That's right.
Yeah. So trust, transparency, so important. The third thing you wanted to talk about today was touchability and accessibility. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think what comes to me, staying in my avenue of tire industry, was from the time that you showed up, was what did you feel like when you walked in? If someone was there, and as soon as you broke in the surface, boy, that's going crazy, isn't it?
I tell you, that's quite a sight, isn't it?
It is.
They're frolicking. There's a school of dolphins frolicking out in the river, folks. It's a cool sight, I'll tell you.
That's right.
Oh, man. Anyways, let's get back to touchability. We can't touch them today. I
No.
can't swim that far.
So, so when you show up, from the time you're feeling uneasy anyhow, because you're in this industry that's kind of like I got to get some tires, but I'm not really sure, even though I've had pretty good experience in the past, whether you've been or not. And from the time, if you're not greeted and show that someone understands a customer is on site and we're here to take care of them. What's that take? Well, a greeting goes a long ways. But then to quickly understand that they've probably got things they need to get done, and let's get on it. And if something slows down, as you're right back with them, say, listen, I know you're in a hurry. We just had a problem here with a car or something. I'm maybe taking that too far, but I mean, all these things you had to be constantly on edge that customer is on a schedule and you made a commitment and you better live up with it, or there's going to be some fraying of trust.
And when you do that, you're working on the relationship with the customer and they develop that trust for you. The next time they come in and you tell them that something costly, maybe a $250 job needs to be done, they're going to say, I understand. Let's go forward with that.
Yeah.
That's the way that works.
Yeah. Well, let's stay with this because this goes through, at times, let's stay like in the food business because we probably eat more than we buy tires. So when we're out there and we've got in there, we made our order and stuff like that, and something isn't quite the way you want it, or you have a question, is that employee touchable? What does that mean? Well, you walk by, sir, if you get a minute, I need to talk to you. And if they kind of, well, I got you taken care of, when I get a minute, I'll come back. No. I asked you, how do you deal? Are you touchable? Do you understand that at any time a customer talks to you, you need to acknowledge it? You need to follow through and let them know. If it got to be a minute or two, sir, give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back to you. You are so important, but you got to make it feel. I've been around people at times, and I'm in a place of business. I'm feeling I'm interrupting this person because I got a question. Well, that's not a touchable person.
No.
I got to have it that I feel comfortable talking to him and that I'm not taking time away from him of his, whatever he feels is important at the time. And there's times probably the customer can overdo it maybe in someone's mind, but you can't get into that. He is always the customer. We've heard that statement, but I can tell you being in business, he's not always right, but he's always the customer.
That's a good way to put it. I hadn't heard it that way.
Yeah.
You probably have said it that way before, but that is good.
Always the customer.
Always the customer.
So that's the touchable side, that because you got to feel comfortable, because there's times that we've got questions about the business aspect what we're working through that day, and we got to have it that we can talk to somebody and that we feel comfortable that they're open to talking about it, giving you some time to kind of ease your mind at whatever it is.
And so that accessibility also, it changes. It could change a little bit from day to day. In other words, somebody could come in and maybe they had a bad morning and they're a little grumpy. They're not ready to get along with all the customers.
Right.
You had a way to deal with that, didn't you?
Yes. Repeat that again.
Well, somebody came in a little grumpy from something that happened in the morning or the day prior, and they really just weren't in a mood to treat customers as customers. Maybe a little snippy, that sort of thing. And at Sun Tire, if somebody saw that going on, well, they would, get somebody else up to the desk.
We would it didn't have to be a management person. If they saw anyone being talked to disrespectful or in any manner that could be construed as they're not being touchable, they've been asked a question from the customer. Regardless, even to the customer be kind of having this bad day, and the way he asked it just kind of was, boy, that's a tough one. I got to deal with it. And so, yeah, working with the customer was very, very that they felt comfortable. And a lot of folks would stay, some wouldn't, but was to, we kept coffee, not just regular coffee. We had a decaf coffee. He said, what's that for? Well, trying to figure out ways to make their stay as pleasant as possible. with the TV and, different things, bathrooms clean, accessible. But all those kind of what we're really working around in my mind is moving back to the issue of how can we be trusted? Can we be trusted? I think of the phone, how we answered the phone. We tried to stay away from, messages coming up instead of the human on the phone. And we also had a deal that said, listen, if you put someone on hold to get another person that's going to outget the manager, is that you had to stay on the phone till the manager got on. Because managers, we knew at times, were busy with other things. And so we couldn't let that customer feel that they were being neglected. So people say, you did what? Well, I passed him. Well, you passed him, but the manager never got on. Now he's out and they feel neglected. They're not going to trust this organization. They said the manager would get on. He never got on. And so we tried to learn in all these aspects from the customer's view versus ours, how do we keep them happy with us? And meeting, and then when we did answer the phone is make sure that, and if we couldn't answer the question, tell them that. Don't be feeding them anything. And we were very sensitive to we felt the phone was meant to answer questions. It wasn't meant to sell. Selling it, hey, I got this special this week and I got this. Unless they ask for that, just answer their questions. Can you get me in? Do I need an appointment? We had a policy on other than one day a week, probably Saturdays we'd have appointments because it's so busy, is first come, first serve. And of course, that's people watch where they are in line, so you better stay on course when you're on that game plan too.
You mentioned phones and phone mail systems, voicemail and everything. I had some experience with this. I've seen there's a lot that can be accomplished by a good phone system.
Amen.
I mean, it can get people expeditiously to the person they actually need to talk to. That can be done. But there are other companies. I work for a social service agency, and I was managing the phone system, and the objective seemed to be to avoid having somebody talk to someone. I mean, okay. The voicemail was endless, and so that is so improper. But yeah, you can establish trust with your voicemail system if it's set up right, and you get to the end of 4 voicemail menus, and then it says the next available consultant will be available in 28 minutes. Now, even that's a break because at least they're telling you. There are people in line ahead of you.
Yeah.
You put it on speaker, you listen in the background, and then when they pick up, you got a conversation. And some deals that you take care of by phone are that important that you'll do it. It's, but at least it's true. They don't tell you, well, we'll be with you in a few minutes, and it turns out to be 28 minutes. That's no good. No.
Yeah, the phone is, and I'm a believer in the phone. People say, I don't like to do anything on the phone, but at times, there's just questions. People's time is precious. And if they can get a straight answer from you, and we'd say if we couldn't, and if we had it where we could give appointments out, I want an appointment. And sometimes, and if it was a busy day, so if you're the first one here, if you want a 7 a.m. deal, we can start at 7 a.m. But from the rest of the day, it's first come, first serve on a busy day. So we try to accommodate, or if you came in, anyhow, we try to find times to work with the guy that's a lady or whatever of a time element that's they're on a tight schedule.
Now, there were times when you made exceptions to the first come, first serve, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, we found with flat tires, if you had a flat tire, people were not inclined to drop off the flat and leave. If they have another flat and they don't have a spare, they're in trouble. So if you had 3-4 flats in a row and you had a busy day going, so what we would do is we'd sometimes move that car around to the backside of the store, and we had a jack back there where we could take that tire off and work it into the system and get that person going.
Without the other customers seeing.
That's right.
Somebody jumped ahead.
That's right.
Oh.
Was trying to figure out how to keep things going and be trustworthy about this. Still, we want trust, but also understanding human nature. Sometimes I'm a studier of that. What is it that the human wants right now? Well, they don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere without a spare tire.
No, no. So I was going to say something else about phone. When you run into, maybe you're dealing with somebody on the phone, I do this. When I get somebody who's really helpful, who's got a great phone manner, a great voice, I'll tell them at the end, you got a great phone manner. You are very good at what you do. People need to hear that.
I think that kind of encouragement, because there's going to be some other people they haven't made happy, not intentionally, but because of a bad day for someone they're talking to have some encouragement. I try to do that with people all the time, that whether they're serving me at the table for food or whatever. Good job. Good job.
So, Dick, we've been talking about trust, transparency, touchability, accessibility. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up this podcast?
Well, Danny, there's no doubt in my mind is constantly working towards trust. And the other issues really, to me, exemplify of making trust the paramount issue. You might not know it, but if you're not touchable, if you're not transparent, it's not going to give you the trust to the customer you want. So trying to stay on touch with all three of those things, but remembering that trust is what we're really trying to work hard for. It's a human nature that's so missing in so many places.
So many places. Well, thanks for being with us again, Dick. You've been listening to Profit Sharing in the Real World. Dick Erickson is the author of Profit Sharing in the Real World, which is available at Amazon.com. Again, thank you for listening. I'm Danny Murphy. Have a nice week.